Fall is my second least favorite time of year. Obviously, winter is my least favorite time of the year because it definitely interrupts my riding and my time with my horses, but fall is definitely a close second. The days get shorter, things get colder, and it's just this constant reminder that, oh, guess what? Your least favorite time of year, winter, is just around the corner. But all that being said, I am well aware that if I just put my head in the sand, ignore that fall is here, and do not prepare, it is going to bite me in the butt. So that is what we are talking about today. Getting your horse ready for the fall so that they're ready for whatever fall brings, and we can smoothly, hopefully, transition into winter. Everyone, if you're new here, my name is Katrina and I live in Alberta, Canada, which means that fall can look very, very different depending on the year. There have been years where it has been super beautiful. We've had what is called an Indian summer and the temperatures stay relatively warm and we just kind of, basically coast into winter. We kind of have an extended summer and then winter. There's other years where maybe it's super rainy or we get like a random massive dump of snow in September. It is all over the place. And regardless of where you are though, fall preparation should be done in one way or another just to ensure that your horses transition as well as possible, that they're healthy, they're happy, and everything is all good. Because that's what we want, things to be all good around here. So the first thing that you want to consider when you are transitioning from summer into the fall is obviously your horse's diet. So here in Alberta, over the spring and summer and into the fall, we have our horses completely on pasture. They do get a bit of a supplementation with some mineral and whatnot, but they are completely on grass. That is the bulk of their diet. That's where their forage is coming from, is pasture. But as the year progresses, the nutrient profile of that pasture does change. And as we do come into the fall, the nutrients in that grass start to get depleted, which means my horses are getting fewer and fewer nutrients, even though they might be in the exact same pasture that just a couple months ago was very, very, very lush, very, very nutritious. On top of that, it's been a very, very dry year here, which means that pasture is actually pretty limited, and just even having the option to give my horses pasture is going to be cut. Like, it's not an option, that's gonna happen very, very soon, and I'm gonna have to start moving them over to hay. From my personal experience, I would say the transition from pasture to hay is a lot easier than going from hay to pasture in the springtime. A lot of horses have trouble with that springtime transition. I have never personally had any issues transferring a horse from pasture to hay, especially because the nutrient profile of hay is often similar to what the nutrient profile of a fall-time grass would be. But this is definitely something that you need to consider. If you have concerns about your horse's nutrient status, it wouldn't hurt to talk to your vet. You could also seek the assistance of an equine nutritionist. Yes, those do exist. I have personally never utilized one, although like best practices, I probably should. I should be getting my hay tested and then supplementing accordingly. I will be completely honest, I have never done that, even though my horses could potentially be a bit better off with that added knowledge, but just something to consider. Another thing that you want to consider related to diet is the change in your horse's caloric needs. So if you're like me, my horses get rode pretty hard during the spring and summer and into the fall as well. But as we transition to maybe wetter times where maybe my arena's too wet to ride, or maybe the ground starts to freeze up and again, I'm not able to ride, my horse's caloric needs are going to start to shift a little bit. You also have to consider that they do burn slightly more calories trying to keep warm in cooler temperatures. So it is a fine balance with this kind of transition period, but just be mindful of, monitoring your horse's body score? Can you slightly feel their ribs if you're running your hand over their barrel? Things like that. Also just monitoring, you know, how their coat looks. If it's starting to look dull, that's definitely a flag that nutrients might be an issue. My horses right now, especially Junior, he's a little bit older, so he's already starting to bring in a winter coat. He is like super dark sorrel and very, very, very shiny, which indicates to me that he is still very, very healthy, and at the moment I do not have any concerns about diet. He's maintaining his weight fine, so at this point we're still good to go, but that does not mean that is going to continue. I need to continually monitor him, which I feel like it's hard to do. You see your horse every day and it's hard to see those shifts over time because they are so subtle. But definitely keep an eye on your horse. If you need to take pictures every couple of weeks, that might be helpful as well. Another thing you potentially need to prepare for as we come into the fall is moisture and its impact on your horse's feet. So where I am right now, it is very, very dry. I have zero concerns about mud or moisture or anything like that right now, but that hasn't always been the case. There have definitely been years where it has been very, very wet, and I have to be mindful of how that is impacting my horse's feet. If your horses are in mud all the time, there is a risk that they could develop an abscess or some sort of thrush condition. So I am a big advocate of picking out my horse's feet constantly. Right now, in the mornings, I'm picking out my horse's feet, and in the afternoon. And actually, because it is so dry, I'm actually still applying a hoof dressing to my horse's feet just to ensure they don't get any cracks. Last year we did have an issue with Diesel because last year was also very dry. He had some sand cracks, and because of that ended up developing an abscess, which was not great. So definitely monitor your horse's feet, watch for heat in the feet. If the foot starts to smell, definitely be in contact with your vet and your farrier. Make sure you're educated about what your horse's normal foot looks like, and then just be monitoring it for any changes. If possible, get your horses out of the mud. It's okay for them to be in mud a little bit, but ideally they would be in just like maybe a drier area, a grassy area where they're not constantly in mud. Another thing that you want to consider during this time of preparation is more about like protection, sheltering, blanketing, that sort of a category, I guess, overarching. So definitely, regardless of what time of year it is, your horse should have some sort of shelter, to protect them from the sun, and then, this time of year, protect them from rain, protect them from the snow that is coming. If your horses do not have shelter, you definitely need to rectify that. Your horses definitely need shelter. And I will just say, trees do not always cut it. They do provide some shelter, but ideally you would have some sort of, what we have is an open-faced shelter that my horses are able to go in and out of as they please, and it just protects them from the elements. Another thing that you want to start contemplating this time of year is blankets. I would say it is way too warm, at least where I am right now, to be putting a blanket on, but at least getting your winter blankets ordered so that when it is appropriate to blanket your horse, they are here. If I can find it, I will put a picture up of like the when you should blanket your horse, like an infographic. It's really, really good to like figure out when you should be blanketing your horses. I think as horse owners, we tend to over blanket our horses, which is actually not great for them. So at this point, if you need to buy new blankets, if old blankets need to be repaired or washed or what have you, get that all sorted so that you are prepared once you need them. But at this point, no blankets. Like, it's been getting around the freezing point here some nights. That is nowhere near cold enough for my horses to be blanketed. So they are completely naked at this point until it gets substantially colder, which will hopefully be a long time away from now. Fingers crossed. I know I've talked about contacting your vet a few times already, but consider bringing a vet out just for like kind of like a fall vet checkup. I would rather do that, have a vet out and tell me that my horse is okay, or maybe identify something that's wrong, as opposed to it being super, super cold out, realizing that my horse had an underlying condition, and then having to address it when it's really, really cold out. Just something preventative. You can also talk to your vet about fall deworming, which you should definitely be considering. Deworming schedules vary substantially depending on where you live, so I'm not going to give any specific deworming recommendations. That's definitely something you need to discuss with your vet. But yeah, just having that professionals look, it never hurts for them to have a look, right? If you get a clean bill of health, great. If you find something underlying, that is also great, because then you can address it again before it gets super, super cold and might exacerbate those problems, especially if you have an older horse, because we all know that winter can be very, very hard on an older horse, and we don't want to get any underlying issues at least in the process of being corrected or just monitored and dealt with prior to -40. That's kind of it as far as fall prep goes. The thing about fall prep is that it kind of bleeds into winter prep, and I feel like winter prep is a bit more hands-on, because especially where I live, where last year we had, I think, over a week of -40 in January. Things do not work well in -40 for that long, and so you really, really want to make sure that like automatic waters, hydrants, equipment that you need to move if you're moving bales and stuff like that, obviously all of that needs to be in place before winter, which that could potentially be part of your fall prep. I know another fall prep thing for me is I still have 5 round bales on hand from last year that I'm going to feed first here when I need to feed hay. But part of my fall prep is getting another load of hay. So I'm going to be having another 10 round bales delivered before the snow flies. They're going to be covered, ready to go whenever we need them. My husband's department is taking care of the Bobcat, making sure that's all running so that when we do need the Bobcat to be able to move a round bale, we are good to go. So yeah, the fall prep kind of bleeds into winter prep. As I've kind of said, you want to get this stuff done while it's 20 degrees Celsius here today. I would much rather be outside dealing with this stuff in 20 degrees Celsius than in -20. So definitely keep that in mind. I always think about doing future Katrina a favor. And whenever I think about that, but I actually don't do her the favor, myself in the future is like, damn it, past Katrina, why didn't you do this? Like, I get mad at my past self. I don't know if that's really weird, but I like to think about doing my future self a favor. So if I can save myself some frozen fingers and yelling at my husband because something's not working or something, I will do that. So definitely it's worth this preventative preparation just to avoid headaches is basically what I'm getting at. Your horse will thank you, and yeah, it just saves a lot of stress, which I am all in favor for. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at Strong in the Saddle. And until next time, remember, it's always a good day to ride. And yes, I will still maintain it's always a good day to ride. Even when it's cold, you just might need to dress a little warmer. See you guys next time.